Alright everyone, it's Friday, we're nearly at the weekend, and to celebrate we have John back on to discuss the latest goings on at Celtic. And it's been a busy old week, John. We've had finally had an end to the Idah saga. Yes! I was eating Kievs after they beat Rangers. I've definitely not milked that at all, have we?
Breakfast Kiev.
We had a youth player leaving. We might touch on that. We had more drama in the Derby ticket allocation stuff. Great. And we've got a cup clash against Hibs to look forward to this weekend. So it's all happening, John. Where do you want to start?
Well, I don't want to gloat too much, Hamish, but I've been back on YouTube for 5 minutes moaning about Celtic not signing a £9 million player, and then, a few days later, they've signed a £9 million player.
But did you call it on Sunday, though? Did you call it? Like a certain man.
Oh, you did call it, didn't you? You said he'd be in for the next game, and you were right. So, congratulations on that.
Yeah. Well, we start with Adam Idah then, because he's in. He met the media yesterday, including fan media. Our good friends at GigPod have sent this over. Here's a wee flavour of what he was saying.
It's a massive move. I've said it so many times. I was always a big Celtic fan, so to now be a player here on a permanent is unbelievable. I want to score as many goals as I can. I want to be just as successful and win as many games. I think that's the mentality in this change room environment. It's that we're not going to lose a game. We want to win every single game, and that played a factor. Having that attitude around the place and to work hard and to drive yourself is unbelievable. So, like I said, the main goals for me is to score as many as I can, more than the 9 goals than what I got last time, and just be successful as a team, and that's the main thing. Kyogo's a fantastic player. He's loved there as he should be. He's great, and I've said it so many times. Regardless of whether I start or whether I'm on the bench, I'm always going to perform, and that's the mentality around the place. No one throws in the towel. It's about the club. We want to do the best we can and win every game. So if it's me starting, Kyogo starting, it doesn't matter. We both want the best for each other. We both want to score as many goals as we can to help this club achieve things. Well, I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's always look at the players on the back of your mind. It's just for me, the case for me was a matter of fact of right, when's it going to happen? It wasn't okay. I don't think it's going to happen. I was pretty confident that I was going to be a Celtic player, and as so were my agents. It was just a case of when I was going to sign on the sheet. So, like I said, I'm delighted to be back here now and just get off to a good start to the season.
He's an interesting guy, John. I find him interesting because I'm not sure much phases Adam Idah, and that even goes to his press conferences. Like, he said a lot of interesting stuff yesterday, but equally I got the impression at times that it's not a big deal for him, stuff like that. And I think it transfers over to playing for Celtic as well. He obviously loves playing for Celtic, but I don't think he's fazed by the pressure. And even of being one of our most expensive players, I don't get the impression he's a guy who's going to really struggle under that. I think he's going to flourish.
Yeah, the fan media one was obviously a little bit more friendly towards him, but the broadcast media one, they were kind of digging into Summer and digging into the process of, being absent from Norwich pre-season trip, missing the flight at one point, and kind of digging into what the kind of machinations of all that was. And I thought he dealt with it real well. He kind of had a smirk on his face throughout it in terms of, like, obviously he made it pretty obvious that he wanted to be at Celtic, but I think he was also at pains to kind of say that he didn't do Norwich badly. He made the point that they asked him to play last weekend in their opening league match, and whether he'd be up for it, and he was up for it, in contrast to the other guy that's going through a bit of a transfer saga there at the moment. So fair play to him. I think he carries himself well. I think he carries himself with confidence. I think being at Celtic gives him confidence. Being a main principal figure at Celtic has given him a lot of confidence, and I thought you saw that in the way that he played last season. But I think this will be, he sees this as a big career step, and it's good to see a player desperate to come to Celtic and make a big career step. He's not just here because he thinks Celtic are bigger than him. He's here to really make an impact and enhance his career and what he can achieve as a striker. And I'm delighted he's in the door. No doubt about it.
There's just no doubt in my mind that Adam Idah isn't going to be a success at Celtic. I just think he's got everything we need, and I think there's so much potential in him as well. I know there's going to be debates about Kyogo versus Idah. I think the reality here is that both of them are going to get minutes. I actually did a wee bit of digging earlier, and this isn't to compare them, I want to make that clear, but it's basically just to point out that, I'll ask you, out of all the minutes available to Idah and Kyogo since Idah signed in January, what would you say the split would have been in terms of time on the pitch percentage-wise?
Off the top of my head, I mean, for me, it would be close to 50-50, would it not?
So Kyogo played 58% and Idah played 42%. So that shows that both of them had, not far off equal minutes, and I think that's going to be even more equal this season, given the standing that Idah has now, where Kyogo played 1,134 minutes, Idah had 819, 8 goals for Kyogo, 9 for Idah. So they're both going to get game time going forward, and there's so many matches as well for them. It's great. We've got 2 forwards who can really battle with each other for those minutes and spur each other on.
Yeah, and unless they're injured, whoever doesn't start is going to come off the bench in the second half. They're both going to be playing on the same match day the vast majority of the time when they're fit. And it's great. And I said last week, the game at Easter Road, it was crying out for someone like Idah to come into the game and kind of change the way that Celtic would attack and change the patterns, give the defenders something different to think about. I mean, this has been a pretty established, formula for Celtic since Andrew was here with Kyogo and Giakoumakis. And obviously Giakoumakis wanted to go off and forge his own path. He wasn't quite happy playing that role behind Kyogo. I think it'll be a little bit more equal partnership under Rodgers with Idah and Kyogo, I would suggest. I think Kyogo's still a main man in many ways, but Idah's he's such a Rodgers player, isn't he? He's big, he's physical, he's pretty quick. And he just has a lot of attributes that Rodgers absolutely loves. So you could see him getting plenty of game time. And as you say, it's not really about comparing them, is it? It's like, I got very tired of that debate when Giakoumakis was here in terms of Kyogo versus Giakoumakis. I made that quite clear on several occasions. And I don't want Celtic fans to fall back into that trap with Idah and Kyogo, because I think they've both got different things to offer, and I think they'll both get plenty of minutes. And it's good to have both of them. We don't need to try and pick a favourite and suggest who's the main one.
Saw someone saying earlier, these days in football, the finishing 11's almost as important as the starting 11, because you get so many subs, and as you say, if they're both fit, you're going to be seeing both of them play every match anyway, and it's going to be what a nightmare for defenders to have to put up with one of them for 60 minutes and then the other one comes on. But it's a huge compliment to Idah as well that we're even discussing him and Kyogo both being number one strikers, because when he signed in January, the feeling was that Idah was a bit of a panic buy and he wouldn't be up to much. I just love the guy. I think he's got everything you need. He loves playing for Celtic, and he's got that attitude as well, which I like. You wouldn't mess with him on the pitch. So excited. Would you start him on Sunday? That's the question. I was
going to actually say that, Hamish. I actually would just throw him in because obviously Kyogo's he's been through the wars a little bit recently, and he's actually played loads of games. He's played every game since we went to Ayr United. So I would just throw Idah in and give him a shot and keep Kyogo a little bit fresh for bigger challenges ahead. And I think it's a good opportunity. And now I wouldn't make massive changes to the team on Sunday at all, but I do think 2 or 3 changes throughout the team could just freshen things up nicely.
Because it's the same opponents as well, so I wonder if that could be in Rodgers' mind, the fact that they've dealt with Kyogo last weekend, so give them something different to think about this weekend. We'll maybe discuss that at the end. Matt O'Reilly, I don't think we discussed that last week or at all since you've been on. Sky Sports reporting we've rejected a 5th bid from Atalanta. They're gradually getting closer. Understood their latest offer was £21.5 million plus add-ons. They're getting closer to what we're after, although people do seem to be assuming it's 25 million. Do we know that from Celtic? Could it be that Celtic want 30 million for Matt O'Reilly?
I think they want closer to 30, to be frank with you. I think they'll get what they can get. I mean, if there's 2 or 3 teams in the mix at around 25 million, one of them's going to offer that little bit more just to get over the line. I still I'm still interested in the kind of the interest from down south more than Atalanta, but apparently O'Reilly's deal breaker is Champions League football. So, I mean, there is the opportunity for him to move to Europe.
Atalanta have Champions League.
Yeah, they have Champions League football. Yeah, sorry, yeah. It's all moving in one direction, isn't it? I don't want to be too pessimistic about this, but I mean, I've made my peace with that. I feel like he's got one foot out the door. To be honest with you, I don't always say that about these things, but I'd be pretty surprised if he's still here this time next month. And that's not, a debt. I think he's been brilliant, and I think he's acquitted himself really well. He's not, he's not huffing about the place. He looks as motivated and, eager to impress as ever. I think Celtic are handling it well by rejecting all these offers, having a firm value. And Rodgers has also made it clear, like they've had that discussion with O'Reilly. He knows what the club value him at, and he's happy to play ball with that. So I think just on all sides, this has been dealt with pretty well. But that doesn't mean that I think he's going to go, and then we just need to deal with that, what comes from that, which is a shame to see him go, but this is Celtic these days, isn't it? If they get an offer north of 25 million, it's probably going to be taken.
Okay, I maybe need to come over to your way of thinking then, because I've not made my peace with it at all. So I've got the heart to look forward to if he does indeed leave. It looks like it might.
I see you're processing that right now.
Yeah, you can just see me going through the 5 stages of grief. What would I be at? Denial or something like that at this stage. He's going to take some replacing if he does go. How does Arne Engels sound? Maybe not him specifically, but the kind of calibre of player as a replacement.
Yeah, and then another interesting one. I don't want to just keep going back to everything that Rodgers has said over the last week, but there was interesting comments in the wake of the Easter Road game where he kind of said that the player who comes in to replace O'Reilly, if O'Reilly does go, obviously isn't going to be at the level of Matt O'Reilly immediately. It's going to be a player who kind of has to develop a little bit. Now, that's not to say it's not a player with the much quoted quality of Rodgers. I do think we're going to bring in a good player, but I think Rodgers is right to kind of set expectations that we're not going to bring in a £25 million player to replace Matt O'Reilly who's ready to go, and with that kind of contribution, it's going to be someone like this chap from Augsburg, and someone who has a lot of potential, wants to play Champions League football, wants to play every week, and really, learn and develop under Rodgers. I think it's an ideal. It's the kind of this guy is the kind of profile you might want to replace Matt O'Reilly. So it's good that we're looking in those terms for someone who's 20, 21, who already has. He's already played about 50 games in the Bundesliga despite being 20. So someone who's cut their teeth a little bit and kind of got that little bit of experience in the pocket, but obviously has much more to offer. So yeah, I'd be happy with him or a guy with a similar profile. The
thing we see quite often from Celtic fans, and it's understandable given the way club have gone about business generally and over previous years, is that O'Reilly will leave and Paulo Bernardo will be the replacement. We've already signed the replacement. We're pretty sure from what Rodgers is saying and what's been reported from various kind of reputable outlets that if O'Reilly does leave, the club will look for another midfielder, because it seems, even just taking away the whole O'Reilly replacement thing, if O'Reilly does leave, we're pretty light in midfield, so we will need another midfielder to come in, and that's the impression we get. The club would look to do that.
It would be frankly psychotic if they never like they really, because the contribution that Matt O'Reilly made last year was significant and the best that anyone offered to the club last season in my books. And I think for it just to let that walk out the door and assume that it's going to be Paulo Bernardo would be risking far too much. And so they do need someone at least with an eye to be able to try and get into the positions and maybe have an eye for goal that Matt O'Reilly has. That's what we're needing. Now, I'm not saying Bernardo can't do that on occasion, but I do think they're very different players, aren't they? For me, they're very different players. I think we need someone who's got that kind of upright, eyes up on the ball kind of attitude with the creativity and the kind of cutting edge pass. That's so difficult to find though, Hamish. It's so difficult to find. So obviously we just hope that the club have done their homework on all sorts of people to replace O'Reilly if he does end up going.
Yeah, I think we all feel that Paulo Bernardo can be I personally think he can be a bit of a star for Celtic in the future. He's very young, Bernardo. There's a lot of kind of upside on him, but I think just even in terms of numbers, you would want more quality in to replace O'Reilly. Because if O'Reilly leaves, you're basically looking at McGregor, Hatate, Bernardo, and then below them you're like Iwata and guys like that. So we'd be light in numbers. Right, we'll see how things go. What else is happening? What is on your mind regarding stuff this
ticket
week?
Fiasco. A lot of people are talking about.
I was going to let you bring it up, so you get the blame.
I don't want to bore everyone. I feel like because a lot of people are turning off of this subject because it just keeps going round in circles, really, doesn't it? But I think Celtic are right here. I mean, there'll be a lot of people who don't support Celtic or Rangers just thinking that it's a tit for tat thing, or it's just kind of both sides are as bad as each other type of thing. It's not for me. I think there has been an element of that over the years, even though we know that Celtic are looking for that return to bigger allocations. I think in this instance, when the different people got together, the SPFL, the police, Celtic, Rangers, they all got together in, the spring and basically agreed, right, we'll get bigger allocations back in. This is what needs to happen. You need to have netting up. You need to have bigger gates. Celtic put the planning permission, paid the money to do all that work over the summer, and they just simply don't have the guarantee from Rangers. Now, Rangers said in their statement, and they can say all they want, that things are progressing towards completing that work before the New Year derby. But unless they can guarantee it, I think that Celtic are well within the rights to say, this is a nonsense, and we're not taking that risk, because there's just too many permutations, and we know that there's what the kind of chances that you can be dealing with in this kind of scenario. And I just think Celtic have got it spot on. I think unless they have the guarantee from Rangers, then there's just no way that we can give them tickets in this current situation. We don't even know whether we're playing. And I'm sure if you ask Police Scotland, and maybe someone should, if you ask Police Scotland, do Police Scotland want 3,000 Celtic fans in Hampden and 45,000 Rangers fans in Hampden for a New Year's derby? No, they don't want that either. And so if Rangers can't even guarantee what stadium they're going to be playing in, then it's a nonsense, really, and Celtic have had to make the call. And yeah, it's as simple as that for me. It's quite clear cut for me. I'm not sure about you.
One argument I did see online was that Celtic should have just given them their allocation for this game, and then you see what happens for the New Year derby. And if, for example, we didn't get tickets for that one, you then wouldn't give them tickets for the third game. And I saw that argument online, and at first I thought, yeah, it makes a bit of sense. And then I kind of thought, no, because then you would have the fourth game, and what would be to stop them just not giving us tickets? We know what Rangers are like, and I think Celtic's big fear here is that we give them tickets for one derby and then we don't have that reciprocated for the next one at Ibrox, and we end up with a disadvantage competitively. And I know people may say it's quite a small disadvantage. What difference does a few thousand fans make? But I guess it wouldn't go down too well. Generally, the thing I'm struggling with here is they've come to this agreement earlier this year. The SPFL, I don't know if the SFA would be involved, but certainly the SPFL and the two clubs. Is that agreement just a gentleman's agreement? Is that not binding in any way? Because Rangers clearly haven't lived up to this agreement, so is there just no punishment there at all? So what was the point in the agreement?
It feels like this should be something coming from the SPFL. I agree. Like this should be like a firm ruling on the SPFL's part. You have to provide this section of the stadium for this many fans with the safety and match experience provisions provided, and if you don't, then there'll be consequences like that. They really should have stepped in by now, I think, because I'm not one of those people who thinks the derby's better off without away fans. I think I think it's a really good thing to have for the derby to have away fans, and I think it's good for the league, it's good for the perception of the league, and I think the SPFL really should have taken control of this a while ago and just, put in place larger allocations and the criteria that was needed to fulfil their obligations as, members of the league and as people who host opposition fans. I don't know why they've not done that. I don't know if they're worried about getting into another argument with Celtic or Rangers or what their problem is. But for me, this is something that the SPFL could have taken control of well before now.
Rangers had a statement out the other day on the issue. We know they like a statement. Should Celtic have have a statement out explaining our stance? I know that they were ringing around the various fan media outlets as they tend to do, but should the club be putting something out on this, just letting people know for sure where they stand?
I think they adequately... I think the story that Celtic wanted to get out was put out there adequately. Let me say that.
Even by non-official sources? Is it not important that we get it out through the club's official stuff?
It is to an extent. I think they don't want to be seen to getting into... If I had to guess, I don't think they want to be getting into a statement and counter-statement situation with Rangers, which could easily descend into. So it was probably best that they just give it a bang, get the story out there, and then, let everyone figure it out for themselves. I mean, again, a lot of people care about this, Hamish, but a lot of people don't care about this. I mean, unless you're heavily invested in the business and the comings and goings of Celtic and Rangers, I mean, a lot of people who watch Celtic at the weekend probably don't care that much about this, to be frank with you, because they just care about the football on the pitch. It's like a lot of issues at Celtic. Sometimes a lot of people just care about what they see on the pitch on a Saturday, and I'm not sure they really care about getting on to the technicalities of stadium regulations and planning permission.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this generally. I would like away fans to be in this fixture. I think it just, even not going to the games anymore, I think it just improves the spectacle, improves the atmosphere. What I would say is, on the pitch, if you just bring it down to the derby in a couple of weeks, it's probably not bad news for us that we're going to have a full Celtic Park against an already fragile Rangers team, where we must be fancying that derby. I mean, that's a... I know you never count your chickens, but that's a tasty looking one for us, I would say.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'll try not to be too smug. I don't have the chicken Kiev coming out of the microwave, but I'm pretty confident, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how the next few weeks go, because they're looking pretty rough to me.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss Daniel Kelly? I struggle with this stuff because it's just something that's happened, and you don't really know the full reason. Some people say, it's money. Some people say it's opportunities. Some people say the Celtic system is just crap and there's no opportunity for these young players. What was your take on it?
It's a bit of everything, isn't it? It's difficult for me. I think regardless of the reasons, whether it's the personal motivations of the players themselves, I think Celtic do need to sort this out, and get this proper player pathway in place. And it's easier said than done, and I don't know the solution, to be frank with you. It's just easy for me to say fix it without really knowing how to fix it. But I do think it's something, because it's been a while now, Hamish, that we've had a standout player come from the academy and become a regular in the first team. And I think we need to see more of it. I think Rodgers has stated he wants to see more of it. And I think they're trying to put stuff in place. And I think Rodgers thought that you had something with Vata and Kelly in the early stages of this calendar year, where he was kind of including them more. He was praising them both in the media. And then, when Rocco Vata left to go to Watford, he made it clear that he'd offered Vata this third striker role to try and come in and be a squad player and play more regularly for Celtic. When the Daniel Kelly stuff happened, he made it very clear that there was a very good contract offer given to Kelly, in terms of what his value is as a young player with potential. I believe that offer was a few £1,000 a week, up to £5,000 a week. And so I think that's a decent offer for an academy graduate. And Celtic will be a little bit disappointed and frustrated. But again, it's kind of on Celtic to make sure that these players are happy enough in the stages from when they're moving from 15 towards 18. That's the critical period here, because we've seen a lot of players leave at 15, 16, 17, 18. Celtic need to be doing more for these players between 15 and 18 to make them feel like they've got, Celtic is a viable place to progress their career, whether it's facilities, whether it's one-to-one coaching. I'm not sure what the answer is, but obviously a lot of players are having their heads turned, and it might be down to money at the end of the day. I don't particularly believe it's totally down to money, to be frank with you. I think there's probably a lot of factors that go into a player deciding to move to another club, but Celtic Celtic have the power to fix it, so they need to fix it.
Yeah, I remember speaking to an agent of a young Celtic player who kind of moved on from the club recently, and his point here was that there was a lot of basic things that the Celtic as a club weren't doing for these young players that clubs down south were. Like, I think the example was given of a player who was at school at the time, having to go to training, and his mum and dad having to wait in the car for like 5 hours on him, rather than Celtic being able to sort transport to and from school or whatever. So it's wee things like that we maybe don't see as fans that can just add up for these young players. I think Celtic are working on this. They've put various people in various roles, Darren O'Day being the main one. I don't know how large his remit is and how young he goes with stuff.
I think it's quite involved. So I think what Dan O'Day's doing is like looking at the players who are coming from the under-18s team, maybe a little bit younger if there's anyone stand out, and then trying to figure out what their path towards the first team might look like, whether that's development loans, whether that's a season in the B team, what it is. And I think O'Day's taking responsibility for that in conjunction with Rodgers, and I think that's what his role is. And I think you're right, I think a role like that's important. And then obviously you have the investment in Barrowfield as well, which is a sizable chunk of investment, and hopefully, facilities like that with a full-size indoor pitch and stuff just also helps, project, a seriousness about bringing through young players, because I think sometimes it's been a perception issue for Celtic over the last decade as well, whereas the perception is that it's not as, you're not going to have as good development at Celtic than at some of these other clubs. So I think investing in a big training centre like Barrowfield starts to show that Celtic are ready to start taking this more seriously.
Yeah, it's just difficult as well to get into the first team, because the first team is so strong at the moment. I mean, Daniel Kelly in that midfield, like, it's tough to get minutes when someone like Paulo Bernardo, who we've spent a significant amount of money on, isn't even guaranteed real minutes, and he's kind of on the bench. So it is a tough one, but it is frustrating, I think, as fans, that we're not seeing players come through to play for the club. Got a new name that's just been reported by Stephen McGowan while we've been on. It's a name from last year, you might remember, Alvyn Sanches, Lausanne midfielder. Stephen McGowan saying he's a candidate to replace coveted midfielder Matt O'Reilly. He is a Swiss player. He's currently playing for, is it Lausanne? I said Lausanne. I remember him last year. Nice, Club Brugge, Anderlecht, Burnley, all said to be interested in him. He's 21 years old, expected to leave Switzerland before the close of the window. So the O'Reilly stuff, not to go back to it, but it seems to be ramping up. We're getting a lot of replacement names now, which maybe tells you stuff. So, yeah. What did we have? What was the other thing? Oh yeah, we're playing on Sunday against Hibs, Premier Sports Cup. The round we went out last season, as you'll know, John, but I'd say we're in a different place this year. The team last year, just by the way, Hart, Ralston, Naropsky, Lager-Bielka, Taylor, O'Reilly, McGregor, Home, Abada, Kyogo, Maida. The subs were Haksabanovic, Yang and Turnbull. So that happened a year ago. I know there's been a lot of negativity about the transfer window, but you can't deny we're in a totally different place on the pitch to 12 months ago.
I agree, and I'm not sure there'll be as much. That seems like there was maybe a fair bit of rotation in that team at that time. I think
there's injuries as well.
Yeah, injuries, stuff like that. I think it'll be a stronger 11 on Sunday. Again, I wouldn't play full strength. I think I'd take Alistair Johnston out of the team, maybe put in Ralston, just because, their managing has, come back from the Copa America. But I would keep Carter Vickers in there, and I'd keep Liam Scales in there, I'd keep Taylor, I'd keep the midfield.
The big one is goalkeeper. What would you do goalkeeper-wise? Would you be tempted to put Sinizalo in?
I would actually, yeah. I think, the chat is that they're committing to this long-term plan for him, so why not give him the cup games? Schmeichel's going to be playing loads this season, so give him a wee go. And then we might get Idah back in the team, and I would give Idah his first start since coming back as well. So, yeah.
Bernardo?
Yeah, Bernardo. I'd maybe give Bernardo a go. Well, we're doing it. So I've gone from saying we shouldn't be making too many changes to 5 or 6 changes. But I don't agree that we need to fully rotate the team, because it's too early in the season for all that, and we don't have midweek game matches yet. But so I want to see a strong 11, is what I'm saying, but maybe with 2 or 3 changes, or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9.
But it doesn't weaken the team.
No,
I
that's true.
don't think bringing Idah in for Kyogo, I don't think that weakens the team at all. Bernardo in maybe for Hatate for a game, I think would be absolutely fine. I think Ralston will start. I agree with that, because I think Johnson let on Sunday that the club are kind of keeping an eye on his fitness and his condition in the early part of the season. I don't think he's had virtually no time off, Johnston. He said that his fitness hasn't even really dropped, which probably says a lot. So yeah, I could see Ralston in, but yes, like centre backs and McGregor and O'Reilly, I think you keep the same. So don't foresee any issues this weekend. We might get a bit of a reaction from Hibs based off last weekend.
Perhaps, but again, that's why you're making the changes, isn't it? You just kind of disrupt the pattern of the game that was last week. You don't want to just do the same again. I think we'll start well though, and I think the players will be up for it, because there was a lot of chat, especially from McGregor and Rodgers over the summer, about, you know, last season wasn't perfect because we didn't win the treble, and we're out to win the treble. There's been a fair amount of that patter from McGregor and Rodgers, so I think they've really got their eye on this competition to set the tone for the rest of the season. So hopefully we see evidence of that when the team take the pitch.
Yes, looking forward to it. John, thank you once again.
Perfect.
Enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up with you next week, I'm sure. Thanks everyone for watching. We made it to 9,000 subscribers as well, so a big thanks for that. And yes, I'll catch you over the weekend. Speak to you then.